First of all, we want to thank you for this day. We want to thank you as Thanksgiving approaches, that you would bless us, all of us, our families, and those who be traveling the highway. Take care of us. We don't wait for Thanksgiving to come to thank you. Each day, you let me live. I thank you because we cannot make it down here in this world that we're living in without you. We need you. Unrest is going on in the world. It seems as though instead of things getting better, it's getting worse. But you are our only hope for America and for this world that we're in. Pray for our county judge, our county commissions, they do business for Brazos County. Direct them and lead them and guide them in the right direction and in the right path. Pray for the Brazos County Courthouse family. Pray for the state of Texas. We pray for America. We pray for our troops. We pray for all of our law enforcement officers whose lives are in jeopardy each day. Now, God, be with us throughout this day. Everybody says amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Chaplain Jones. Second item on the agenda is to call for citizens' input and/or concerns. Hearing none, we'll consider and take action on agenda items 3 through 15. Item 3 is request approval to wire transfer $67,500 to Texas Health and Human Services, HHSC, as part of the Texas Health Care Transformation and Quality Improvement Program 1115 waiver. This intergovernmental transfer, IGT, will provide matching funds to St. Joseph for prenatal clinic program. This project is under the Delivery System Reform Incentive Payment, DSRIP, pool of funds.
Move for approval.
Second. See, we've got representatives. I don't know whether anybody wants to speak. You're welcome to. Tim? Okay, yeah, that's fine.
I'll welcome Lynn up here. If you'll indulge me for a minute, would you like to, I don't know if that's the next item, or if we'd like to do a little report on what you're getting for your money.
Okay.
That's always nice to have and important.
Would you like to handle it, or would you like to just tell me and I'll...
That'd be great. If you go get the next one. So very quickly, if you don't work with this almost every day or every week, there's a quick refresher on the 1115 waiver, which is what this program operates under. It's a prenatal navigation program under the 1115 waiver, DSRIP, and that's Delivery System Reform Incentive Payment. There won't be a quiz after this, I promise. So it took me a while to learn that. The 1115 waiver, Texas passed, is a 5-year program, started in 2011. We just finished what they call DISH Year 4, or Demonstration Year 4, and have a report for you. We have to report on to Health and Human Services and forward that on to Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services in order to qualify to use those matching funds. So our project has to perform up to expectations. It's just not you put the money up and get it back. The Texas program is in its 4th year. Next year will be year 5, and then it expires. Texas has asked for a 5-year extension of that program, so we hope the program will continue and we'll be able to do more performance improvement. These projects are intended, and there's dozens of them across our region, are intended to either improve access or improve the quality of care for lower income residents in our community. So go ahead with the next slide. So there are two components very quickly to the 1115 waiver. There's one that's called the uncompensated care pool of funds, and if you'll remember, that's why the LPPF was developed, that you have oversight for. That allows us to draw down those funds, and that's for all the hospital providers that do large amounts of uncompensated care funding. The other piece that we're talking about today is that DSRIP, and again, that's designed to improve access or improve quality for the broad population of underserved residents. Next, if you will. to draw, and then just as a reminder, the reason we're here and the reason we come to the county is it requires a governmental entity to put those match funds up. So you have to be a city, county, school district, hospital district, health science center, or mental health authority, the only ones that can put those matching dollars up, which is why we come to you and you approve that funding. Okay. Next slide, and I'm going to invite Lynn up here because she's the St. Joseph worked with prenatal clinic to do a navigation project. Lynn's going to kind of describe that project, and then we'll give results at the very end.
Judge Peters and Commissioners, thank you very much, and guests, thanks for listening to our program, and we are so pleased that we have seen patients in this program. This program has allowed us to have a community health worker in our clinic, and as we celebrate 30 years, and I don't know how many of you know, we've been in this community for 30 years, incorporated in 1985, so we're going to have a big celebration through next year, so this is rather fitting that this project comes about and will finish about the same time that we finish our 30th year. But just kind of basically, I just want you to know that it is a very, I'm ready to go to the next slide, sorry, a very comprehensive program and fits right into the mission and purpose of the prenatal clinic because every patient is screened for diabetes when they come into the clinic, and they are screened they're screened early if they have a history of diabetes, but every patient is screened at between 24 and 28 weeks for gestational diabetes. And if you're unfamiliar with that, that is a high-risk situation for a pregnant woman. So being able to control that, and with the culture and the prevalence of diabetes, we are seeing more and more of that at the clinic over the years where we didn't see that 15 or 20 years ago. Patients have to agree to be in the program. It doesn't necessarily, we encourage them, certainly we strongly encourage them, but they are not required to do this. It doesn't affect their ability to have services at the prenatal clinic. But we just only see patients who agree to participate in this program. They agree to participate in the program. They must be diabetic, proof of residency in the Brazos Valley, proof of pregnancy, of course, and then they have to meet income eligibility requirements as well. The next one just states again that this is a voluntary program. We will see about 550 new patients at the prenatal clinic. Obviously, all of them are not diabetic, but they are screened. Every scheduled visit that a diabetic patient has at the prenatal clinic is then followed up afterwards with our health educator and community health worker to make sure that we are going over their treatment plan, that we are making sure that they are compliant. If they're having any problems or if they're having any confusion, we have a visit with them in addition to their regular prenatal visit. These next slides are just some documents that we provide, educational materials that we do provide. So on to the results. 27 of our patients enrolled in the project. 28 met the criteria. 1 didn't want to participate. However, we have achieved 117% of our target goal, which is exceptional. We were so pleased that we had so many women who were willing to participate. All of our patients were compliant that enrolled in the program, so we did see a strong desire to change behaviors. And between October 1st, 2014 and September 30th, we had 188 referrals from St. Joseph Hospital, and 61 of those made appointments at the prenatal clinic to receive services. Other referrals came from the Federally Qualified Health Center, A&M Patient Navigation Program, Health for All, and other community clinics. So we have a very robust referral system, and we have a great connection in our community to make sure that every woman in our community has access to prenatal care. Bottom line is, healthy babies is a healthy community. So we are very, very pleased that we have this collaboration with other groups in our community. And I think that's what our community looks to us to do. As a nonprofit, we need to depend upon each other and not duplicate services. Postpartum education is a key measure that we also had to report upon, and we did have to meet very strict requirements. I bet we killed 1 million trees, unfortunately, trying to get these documents to the federal government this year, but 100% of the enrolled navigation clients who had delivered as of August the 10th had a postpartum visit. So that is very encouraging, making sure that they come in for their postpartum visit, make sure that we get them hooked up for continued care, because the prenatal clinic obviously doesn't see them after they're pregnant, but their health must continue, because a lot of these are young women and these are their first pregnancies, so they're going to have subsequent pregnancies, and we want them to be healthy when they come back to our clinic. And then just of note, it's not a measurable metric that we had to report on, but of the 11 navigation clients who delivered at St. Joseph, there were 0 NICU days. That is compared to a random sampling of 7 other women who had a combined 73 days in the NICU unit. First of all, you never want a baby to have to go to the NICU unit. Bless that they are there when they're needed, but when we can look and say that 0 of our patients had to have babies in the NICU unit, we were just thrilled with the outcome. So thank you very much for your support. This is making a difference. We are seeing results and exactly what we hoped had happened. So we appreciate you.
Thank you, Lynn. It's a great program, and we're happy that St. Joseph teamed with you, and the matching funds are certainly a benefit to y'all, to expectant mothers, and to the community. So, any other comments?
No, if you have any questions, I would point out that Jack Buckley is here. Jack's on you're familiar with him.
Yeah,
Jack's on the prenatal clinic board, and it's not unfamiliar to us at St. Joseph, so we appreciate his support too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got a motion and
We have a motion and a second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Number 4 is discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the proposal for the purchase of property, construction of a new office building by Brazos Central Appraisal District. And I tell you, I think traditionally we take a motion and a second and then have discussion, but I think it's more appropriate that we have discussion on this issue first. And there's really a few things that I probably need to address before we actually have the appraisal district come up to do your presentation. There's been comments in the past at some of the school council meetings that it seemed like maybe that I wasn't returning calls. I don't know of any call that I didn't return. Now, there may have been back and forth between one of the board members and I, where they might call me and I'd leave a message, or I'd call them and I'd leave a message, vice versa. But I don't know of any spot that I would not return calls. And then when we look at whether the lot that the county has had, whether it was for sale or not, I want to kind of go through, as we discussed the other day. I think it needs to be brought out in the open, because there's been some discussion at other meetings about what the facts from somebody's perspective. So here's my perspective of how that all took place. The Commissioner's Court ended up trading and put in some money for that tract of land out there in Park Hudson. There's 19 acres, more or less, out there. We traded with the school district for property we owned that they were interested in. We were interested in that because we were looking for a location that was central to Brazos County, as close as we could get to College Station, but still be in the city limits. And that's one of the requirements of the tax office. It has to be in the county seat. So that's why we were looking at property out in the area. We struck a deal with the BISD and ended up making a trade for the 19 acres. But as the Commissioner's Court took a look at how we might develop that tract of land and what the needs were, our current need certainly was for a tax office. And when we took a look at it, we decided, the Commissioner's Court decided that it is probably best, because this is a governmental body, to look at the back end of the lot, the furthest away from that high-traffic Boonville area, and put the tax office on what I would consider the lower side, the lower value side of the whole lot. We made that conscious decision, and that's the way we platted and developed the tract. We had discussions with BCAD about the possibility of doing a land lease on 15,000 square foot that is within the parking lot that currently exists out there. Ultimately, you know, I think maybe it was because the appraisal district found that they couldn't borrow money on for a building on property that they didn't own, so the decision was made not to do the land lease. But in the course of platting that property out there, Brazos County went ahead and platted a 1.9 acre tract, separate, that wouldn't impact anything else we were doing out there. It actually fronts on Pendleton and wouldn't have an impact on the remainder of the tract. So they platted that 1.9 acre just in case the appraisal district decided that they didn't want to do a land lease, and that tract would be available for sale. I can tell you from the beginning in my discussions with some of the BCAD board members, they really didn't seem to have any interest at all in the 1.9 acre tract. So we kind of backed off, and then the first resolution came before us, and I don't really want to have to get into a whole lot of that, but it came with a 14,000 square foot, up to 14,000 square foot building. I felt like we were going through the process of building the tax office at the time, and when we started, we thought we would need a 13,000 or 14,000 square foot building. We ultimately built a 10,500 square foot building, partly because we didn't feel like we could afford that big a building, and we had our architect design a efficient building for a tax office. It was built for a tax office. So we downsized from what we thought we needed, but in the first proposal it came to us and it said up to 14,000 square foot. You know, I know there was some aggravation with me because I was opposed to it, and I guess I led the charge against it, and it ended up failing. But so you know, it is what it is. I felt like it was the right thing to do, not to have that as up to a 14,000 square foot building. The second proposal, now it's at 11.5. That's a lot more acceptable there, but BCAD contacted me, and here's where I need to apologize, because I was contacted about the property out there. I had been looking at, we actually had the property appraised, and it came in at $228,000. I had been hearing the prices that BCAD had been looking at lots around there, and they were, you know, twice that, sometimes more. And so I really didn't understand why our lot wasn't worth more, and frankly, I was disappointed when the appraisal came in based on what I was hearing that the lots that were on the market at the time around us. So when asked about that 1.9 acre lot, partly because I was told that BCAD was not interested in that lot, and then two, that I didn't feel like the appraisal came in at a value that was comparable to what was going on out in the market around us, I said it was not on the market. I should have clarified that. I should have said it's not on the market at that price, but at some price it would be. That's my fault. I take responsibility for that. I did say it wasn't on the market. I should have clarified it and said that it was on the market at a price. But anyway, so it wasn't until really, it was at the workshop, I guess, College Station, after that was over with, that I saw that there was a contract for sale on a tract of land that's on the corner of Pendleton and Copperfield, which is just a few hundred yards from the tract of land that we have. Granted, it's a corner lot, but there was a contract for sale, I believe, for $500,000. And I'll tell you frankly, I just, you know, to me, I couldn't understand why our track would appraise at $228 and that track would be valued at $500,000. So I went to the BCAD site and took a look at it and found that BCAD had it valued at $376,000. So that kind of concerned me. And I'm not saying the track's not worth $500,000. It may be. I think ours was appraised low. You know, and I'm not in the business of appraising or anything, but regardless, when I found that out, I decided, you know, it's time that I contact the board again and tell them that, you know, if that's what we're looking at, you know, is values maybe above what appraisal is, then certainly our tract would be for sale. And I called one of the board members, and I expressed some of the concerns I had about the whole thing, and told him that lot that we had would certainly be for sale at a price we would certainly be willing to sell it. I was told at the time that BCAD didn't have any interest in that lot, and but they might have interest in 2 acres out of the acreage that was closer to Boone. I already had an executive session set to discuss that the possibility of selling the 1.9 acres, but we really didn't discuss it in the executive session because I was told on the Friday before the Tuesday that there wasn't any interest in it. So we really didn't discuss that, you know, in executive session for selling it. So there were, and I wanted, I mean, I kind of watched and kept up with what was going on with the other cities, and I know that there were some comments made by some of the council members on both cities that, you know, it sounded like we were trying to micromanage the appraisal district, and that there were a lot of smart people on there, and I agree with that. There are a lot of smart people on the board. But I'll tell you frankly, I think the questions that have been asked are legitimate questions. I think that if we didn't ask those questions and probe in there, that I don't think we'd be doing our job as elected officials. So, you know, and I think that's why maybe the legislature put those checks and balances in the law. That somebody has a check and a balance on, I mean, we have them. We got an auditor over here that's always checking on everything we do. So, and she's hired by the district judges, so we have no control over her. She runs free and
Wow.
So I don't think it's a bad thing, and I really do hate that this whole thing has almost kind of got contentious, you know, and I hope we can get past it. I've got friends on the school board, I mean on the appraisal district board, and you know, it's not a comfortable spot to be in, but I felt like the questions really did need to be asked, and I really think that the questions that were asked by the city councilors need to be asked. So, I will tell you that in regard to the lot location, I asked Christy Rowe last Friday if she had any idea how many people might have come through the tax office. And she told me that she knew how many had come through and actually signed in on the computer and did that, but she had no clue about how many had gone through the drive-through window. She didn't know how many might have just came in and asked questions and left, or went and talked to somebody in the back. She didn't know about the collections attorneys, how many people might have come out there for that. But the number that she gave me as of noon Friday was 68,963, and it opened May the 8th. So in about 6 months' time, we've had nearly 69,000 people go through there. And I can tell you that if you Google that thing, unless something's changed, Google will send you somewhere else. It does not send you to the tax office. So in spite of all the problems about trying to find a tax office that doesn't have a prime location, it's difficult certainly to find on the internet. 69,000 people have come through there. Now, some of those may be duplicates because they may have gone out there twice, you know, or that sort of thing. I don't know, but the fact is there's been a lot of people find that tax office in 6 months' time. So I wondered, you know, the last few days, I've kind of run through my mind, how can we have such a difference of opinion about this thing? And here's what I've kind of concluded. The appraisal board is made up of smart people, no doubt about it. But what I see, and there's nothing wrong with this, but what I see is that, you know, there's a lot of real estate types, bankers, developer types. And what are the first 3 rules that you learn in real estate? It's location, location, location. It's ingrained to all real estate people and probably bankers who are going to deal with it. You know, that location is the prime reason that you're looking at a lot. But when you look at the really, I mean, while location is important, if it's convenient to the public, it doesn't really have to be on a prime location. And so, you know, I think that the tax office has proved that that in spite of it not being in a prime location, we've moved it back away from Boonville. And with the reason, part of the reason we did that was if some future court decides we don't need all that acreage out there, and that that the county would never need it, then there's a possibility that a future court might sell part of that. So to me, it would make sense that we should have the most valuable tract of land out there to sell and put it back on the tax rolls to a private entity. So those are my thoughts. That's what went through my head through this whole process. You know, as I told both of y'all the other day, I'm opposed to the resolution as it stands because it identifies that one tract that, in my opinion, we shouldn't be pulling a tract of land off the tax rolls. I mean, if there's something available that will work, and when you start talking about, in my thinking is that with public purpose, convenience and price really should be the 2 main things. And when you've got the tax office already there, and then if the appraisal district goes close to the tax office, then to me that's convenient to the public. That makes it a very convenient spot that if somebody happens to go to one for the wrong, thinking they were going for a reason and they are sent to the other one, they walk across the parking lot. And it doesn't pull anything off the tax rolls. I throw all that out there just because I wanted my friends and folks I know to know what was going through my head through that whole process. I don't know whether at this point somebody else wants to speak, and then I certainly want to give y'all any time you need to respond back. Welcome to anything.
Well, I'd like to reiterate a couple of things. First of all, I want to say that, you know, I don't have a vendetta against the appraisal district at all. You know, there's nobody at the appraisal district that I dislike. I'm just like the judge. There's some people there that are good friends of mine, and I hope always will be. But we're in a position that I feel like that, you know, we're elected to be good stewards of the residents' funds of Brazos County, just like the appraisal district should be fiscally responsible and be good stewards of the different entities that they represent of the appraisal district. And, you know, even though there's a few things that, you know, with the size of the building, of course, we had a problem with, and, you know, there's 2 or 3 other little things in the deal of the financing deal, and of course taking a lot off of the tax rolls. But as the judge said, I guess the one thing that I really have a problem with more than anything is everything that's come out right here lately about the location of the appraisal district. And I mean, you know, why does the appraisal district, I don't understand why you need high exposure, high visibility,
high curb appeal. You don't have any competition. You're not like a convenience store where people are going to walk by or drive by and say, oh, we need to stop the appraisal district and go in there and shop. I mean, it's not like they're not going to find you, just like they come find us at the tax office. And I guess that's one of my big hang-ups right now as far as where you want to locate. I'm not against if Mr. Ball can't help y'all or do what you want done. I'm not against the appraisal district having a new building or place to move, but I just want it to be done in a way that costs the least amount of money and will work the best for the residents and everybody that supports the appraisal district. I'm not at all against it. I just want it done in a way that we all feel like that it's justified. And I don't feel like that the location that the appraisal district looked at is justified because I don't see why you need the exposure to that. And I like everybody at the appraisal district, okay? I'll say that at the end too. Just have a few problems with a little of it. That's all I have.
Anybody else on the board? I mean, if not, you're welcome to come up and respond back to any of that. We certainly want to see the presentation.
Thank you for your comments. It's great to hear those, and that was a pretty good summary. Where we're at and where we've come from is in February, I believe, sometime previously, we did present to the Commissioner's Court and the judge. It was too big, it was too much, so we reduced the project down from $14,000 down to about $11,500, and I'll show you that presentation real quickly. I'll kind of roll through it. We reduced the cost by about $500,000. But in that presentation, we never heard the feedback of, we want you on. This was actually on a piece of property that's a little closer to University Drive, maybe even higher visibility than what we have under contract now. And we didn't get that feedback of, we want you on this 1.9 acres. So we went back to the drawing board, and our resolution, it's an interesting process for us to buy land. We've got to make 2 school districts happy, 2 city councils happy, and a commissioner's court happy. So there's a lot of politicians involved. It's not an easy process. Let me roll through where we're at now. I'm glad to hear that I'm hearing you say that ownership might be a better thing than renting, which we believe that we will be better stewards for the tax dollars if we own our own building, and that's great to hear.
Right, and let me just comment that the only place we were talking about lease was the property that's inside of the parking lot, and it's not for sale. So since y'all, if the only thing you can do is buy to be able to build, then that one's off. So
right. So we have an interesting. I mean, it gets us into an interesting problem. Is that if we can only seek approval from all of these jurisdictions on property that's not on the tax rolls, yet there's only one suitable property, or suitable by your means, it limits our scope. But let's get into the project, and then if we want to look at something else, I've got some PDFs as well. Did you want to start with anything, Tim? Okay. So factors considered, we have large population growth. Security, we've actually had some issues at the appraisal district. Right now, as you know, if you've been in there, it's a big bullpen. There's very little separation from the public and the private. Customer service, how can we be better? Technology, how can we be more efficient? Value, what's the best for the taxpayer dollar? I skipped through a slide. So our assessed value has increased by 80% from 2006 to 2015, and obviously our growth has been great. Our parcel count's grown by 15,000 parcels, so that includes real estate, private property, as well as oil and gas. The demographers estimate our growth
to be about 27.5% population growth in the next 15 years. So here's our project as we have it. So our resolution is for a fixed piece of land. It is for a proposed building, and we have proposed financing. We have not gone out for architectural plans. We haven't fixed our financing simply because we don't have a project yet, but we have a proposed project. Land cost at $500,000. It's building cost at 2.7. The total estimated cost would be 3.2 million. So this is where we're at the very bottom. You see our current lease. We have about 10,600 square feet off Briarcrest Drive. County line is here. We really would like to be accessible. We want to serve both cities and the taxpayers as easy as possible. We do believe that this corridor is a great corridor to be on. That red is the MAR tract. It's 2.154 acres. It is surrounded by 3 streets, Copperfield, Stone Park, and Pendleton. And then just for your information, this purple piece of property is county-owned. The white piece of property, I believe, is the subject of 1.9 acres. Okay. So the building site's 2.154 acres. It's been owned by the Mars since 2002. It's been for sale for quite a while. How do we buy this land? Over the years, there's 2 ways that the appraisal district raises money. One is through a tollment, and we basically bill each jurisdiction every year, and they pay quarterly. And the second way is through sales of data, through interest on our own funds, and through map sales. In the 35 years we've been in existence, we've been saving money, knowing that eventually we would like some big projects either in technology or in a building. So we have $400,000 in a committed building fund. We have $170,000 in a committed furniture and fixtures fund. We have a reserve fund of $387,000 right now.
Let me ask you, John.
Yep.
So that, all of that whole $900 and something thousand that's in that reserve fund balance.
Right.
Total, it all came from.
So
somewhere
probably
beside.
the majority of it is in actual compounding of interest. So every year after our audit comes in, if our budget, and I believe, Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe $191,000 went back to the jurisdictions this year. Is that correct? So at the end of our audit, if we have a $2.8 million budget and we spend $2.6 million, we return to the jurisdictions $200,000.
So let me ask this, because I didn't dig this deep into this budget, but do you actually budget some money for, what would be called?
No, we raise money 2 ways, through a tollment for our operating budget, and it does not include a line item for any of these funds that are in this reserve fund. So our reserve fund is built up separate than our operating budget. And we have not spent that, to the best of my knowledge, in the 35 years of our existence. I think I've been a board member since 2001, and to the best of my knowledge, we haven't spent any since then. I suppose I'm counting that that's the case, that it wasn't spent prior to that. And we don't build jurisdictions.
Okay, so I guess what,
Where's it? You said 2, second, map sales.
Map sales, data, and compounding of interest, which is terrible right now.
we all know that, unless you're borrowing, Tim can tell us about it.
But we did have some good years where we were earning 6 and 8% interest, and we, yep, and we had, $500,000. So we had some good years. If you divide that out over 15 years, it's about $30,000 a year. So it's not a huge amount of money that we've actually been bringing in every year. So it is real money. It is not taxed or tolled to the jurisdictions, and it is held separately from our operating budget.
Okay, so and I guess part of my concern, and I mean, this is a good conversation, is that, that somehow that fund balance might be built back up off the backs of the taxing entities, and I'm hearing that that's not where any of it came from.
Well, this slide will kind of tell it here. So BCAD plans to move another $200,000 from unassigned reserve funds to the committed building fund if we get jurisdiction approval. The committed building fund will be used to purchase the land for the proposed site at a cost of $500,000. The remaining $100,000 in the building fund will either be used to reduce the amount financed or as contingency, depending on how our project goes. So there is money that we have we wouldn't come back to the jurisdictions for more money in this project. We have $100,000 of our own as a contingent fund. And then down here, the unassigned reserve fund will have an ending balance of $187,000, and this represents approximately 6.5% of our annual operating budget. We've talked to our auditor and gotten really a sampling of other appraisal districts. We're an interesting government entity. We don't have a bond rating. We don't. We atoll. We don't. The collection and our budget is to such the need that we don't have the need to dip into our reserve fund. In fact, a lot of appraisal districts don't have any reserve fund. So, and in fact, it's likely that a reserve fund would need to be even less than $187,000 in the future. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. My concern was that as it got spent down to 187, that at some point, not next year maybe, but in the future years, that fund would be built back up from money from the taxing entities, which really would, if that were the case, would be a cost to the county.
I agree, and if history repeats itself for the last 35 years, the answer will be no. So this is our proposed site. This is 2.154 acres. As you can see, we really fill up a 2-acre site quite well. There's some buffer for landscaping on all 3 sides, and we do have the ability to grow. This proposed building is 11,500 square feet. We have some ability to have some storage up and perhaps build out if we needed it in the future. So we looked at 2 things. We looked at renovation of the existing site, adding some square feet, and our current landlord has been great to get some estimates to us. We also looked out at if we decided not to renew where we're at and we ended up in another building, we looked at all sorts of things. So, but this is ultimately what we need. We need separation from the public to the employees. We need privacy, and as our protests go up, we're charged to certify our rolls by January 31st of each year. And as these protests grow and grow, the only way we're going to be able to certify rolls is going to be to have simultaneous hearing rooms. And so we're probably going to be in the need for more than 1 hearing room and perhaps up to 3 hearing rooms at some point.
That's based on numbers out of other appraisal districts, what we expect with relating back to the parcels and so forth.
So this is, if this is a proposed schematic of a new building, very similar. So we've got waiting room in the front, we've got hearing rooms, we've got private meeting rooms, and then we've got still a bullpen work area. So it's nice, it's new, but it's reasonable.
And let me clarify the separation from the public issue. Unfortunately, it's the times that we're in, y'all deal with it also. That's a security issue and a privacy issue. It's not that we're trying to separate ourselves from the public. It's those 2 primary functions. So
we're charged with trying to propose a building without going out and having it designed, and so Goodwin Lassiter has put some cost estimates together. We actually had this site under contract, and they did some preliminary layout work for this building. Their estimates are what they are, estimates. And so we have a building area, attic storage, some site area. That site area is going to be just the concrete, and the earthwork is really to get that site ready to put a foundation on, and it's site work that any property will need over and above its current needs. Soft costs, that's the architect fees and other fees that might, permitting fees, etc. Cabling, we'll have to cable the building, security, landscaping. Furniture and fixtures, again, that was in our reserve fund, so we're not asking the jurisdictions to pay for that or to fund that. So we actually took the high and the low. We simply took the midpoint, and our proposed building would be $2.7 million. So the effect on the county is displayed here, and I've got a couple of slides, and I'll go through those real quickly. Right now, our operating expense that includes everything that you would think, janitorial, electricity, insurance, all of the needs that we have, it's $159,000. The allocated amount to the appraisal district would be $34,492 per year. Projected annual cost, if we were to move somewhere else and potentially rent or have a renovated space, would be more than what we're spending now. And we did look at renovating the existing space we're at. That amount comes to $196,466. The difference, if we reconfigure how we're operating in a rent space, the impact to the Brazos County would be $7,886.
How many years do you base that on?
This is a lease, 10-year lease. Is that what we looked at, Mark?
15.
A 15-year lease. Okay. So, and you know, with a lease, there's going to be some escalations probably after that point. So, this is, I think, it gets better. So, the allocated cost, if we have a purchase option, so again, that column that reads 2015 current allocated annual occupancy costs, that's the same from the previous slide. The projected costs, which we have above, that $203,339 includes operating expenses as well. So it's not just principal interest. It's our insurance, maintenance. So we looked at what's the real cost to the jurisdiction. And so the real cost to the jurisdiction we estimate to be $9,368 per year. So then we took this and said, okay, we know we need to move. We know we need to improve where we're at. So now what is the cost if we take that lease option of improving where we're at and the purchase option of building new? And the cost difference to your jurisdiction is $1,484 annually. And that, again, includes operating expenses. So we looked at, again, this is a proposed project. We don't know when we would be approved with drawings and be able to get financing. We did get feedback from other jurisdictions that they would rather us have a fixed rate over a 20-year period rather than a balloon note, and I agree with that. We have looked at getting a fixed rate. This is not that, but what this slide does show that after 15 years, we have $1.9 million in equity buildup for the jurisdictions. When we would have a remaining mortgage on this scenario. There's another scenario where we would actually build up equity a little faster, and the building would be paid for outright in 20 years. So not only do we not have rent escalations, we don't have a mortgage payment. So makes pretty good sense for the taxpayers. We're seeking your approval. We've put a great project together. We recommend building rather than continuing to lease an office space, giving the owners of Brazos County the best value for the dollar, and to provide improved security, efficiency, and technology for BCAD. And then your remarks, I really appreciate that. It's great to hear them, and what I wish is that in February, we would have heard that feedback. I've got 1.9 acres. I'd like to see you on that property. Not only that is when we came to you, because you actually were integral in the last resolution failing, we came to you first before we submitted our resolution to any jurisdictions. And again, we still didn't get that feedback, so.
Let me just respond to it. I can tell you, because when I bring up the 1.9, the response back to me is there was no interest. So,
And I hear you. I think we probably need to work as boards and commissions, and not as phone calls to members, that I think we can get more done that way.
Yeah, let me just respond, and I would like to respond to a couple of things that were said. I've not been in any conversation. Some of the words challenge me. I've not been in any conversations about vendettas or anything else. We're just trying to do something right, and as John has said, we think building and ownership is better long-term than leasing. Let me also state for the record, Mr. Ball can take care of us. It has a cost, and what we're trying to show is what that cost would be, and we expect it to go up. And anybody that is a landlord is going to expect over a period of time, as we've been blessed in this community over the years, is that those rental rates are likely to go up. They do. They have. And we think this is the best way for us to manage for the taxpayers to fix that regular cost over a long period of years, and at the end, the goal would be that cost goes away. Clearly, we're always going to have utilities. We're going to have the things that go with operating a facility, but the end game in mind was there. And Judge Peters, as far as phone calls, I would tell you, thank you, sir. We called you on very short notice last Friday. Have I got the day right?
Oh, it was
Thursday?
Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday. Days are running together for me. And you scheduled a time that day to come by and sit down with us, and thank you for that. So I would say responsive, absolutely. And we are friends and associates and community members here. We're just trying to do right, and would hope that we get there. I too would hope that we're asking for approval. There's no question about that. But barring that, if we don't get that we get some clear direction, a clean shopping list, so that if we have to come back again, that we can do that. And the reason there is, in all candor, folks, the other taxing entities that we have responsibility to, and you folks are about 22% of what we do. Clearly, the county encompasses everything as it relates to the property, but as our budget would show and what we do, the county's piece of this and our responsibility is about 20% when you look at a ratio. We're responsible to you, period, but when you put numbers to it. Those other entities appear to be a bit reticent to do anything because they're not sure what's happening here. And it's a shame when it gets played out in a different way. The Central Appraisal District is a different entity than any of the elected bodies, because we have to go herd cats and get approval from 5 different groups, whereas you folks would do it in executive session, what I experienced back to school board days and those kind of things. And it's much more efficient and allows you to negotiate fairly and those kind of things. And we're trying to do right, and we would appreciate, if not approval, clear guidance so that we can bring you something you're going to be happy with, and that's our goal. We want to serve the taxpayers well, as we know you do.
John, I have a question. For you. The earlier slide where you were showing what you have, what I consider a surplus part of money, appraisal.
Reserve fund, right.
Or reserve fund, where you have the mapping costs and different things. If the appraisal district, and don't get me wrong, I just don't understand maybe some of the inner workings of how it goes. That's why I'm asking this question. Not being against it, I just want to know more about it. But on that reserve fund, if the end of the year and you have $1 million left in that fund and all your bills are paid, why wouldn't that money go back to the entities that are supporting you and paying the money for you to operate, instead of staying in a fund that's not really a fund for you to work off of?
Well, it's money we didn't toll. We didn't collect it from any of the jurisdictions, for one.
But you were able to collect it because we gave you the money to operate. That is a function that we have. The special projects is probably why we have retained it. Quite frankly,
we're in a good position with that money now to use it and not have to charge the jurisdictions for the land and the furniture and fixtures. It does make this project, it is being absorbed by the jurisdictions now.
You know, with all due respect, I think we're regulated by the Comptroller's Office and by the state legislature. And I think these funds, I cannot attest fully to this, Mr. Callahan, but I think these funds have been accounted for in the manner that we are charged to do that. That's the reason they've not been returned to you over the past 35 years. This is the manner that these funds have been directed to us to be accounted for.
Well, and I don't know either. I mean, I know there's, for instance, in the county, I mean, there may be grant funds, and so, and they're for a specific use, and so we spend those first, and then if it takes taxpayer money to finish a project, then that's what we do. We always spend whatever, you know, those specific funds first, and then the taxpayer funds last. You know, I mean, it may be a method to, if the district in the future, I realize you're going to be down to 187 or 183, and maybe that's an appropriate number to kind of have there to, you know, to make sure that if the county or the two school districts didn't pay in a timely fashion, and y'all needed, you know, pay all your bills, you know, you'd have some money. I mean, that's kind of the reason I think that counties or governments are required to keep some fund balance on hand. So, and I think it's an appropriate thing to have. But if it were to begin to be built back up to the level of the, you know, what we're looking at now, it may be that you could spend that money first and not get in trouble with the legislature or something about the way you handle money. I don't know.
Just for the record, it's a balance on our audit every year. We're not hiding money anywhere. It's all very out in the open to all the jurisdictions.
Yes, I saw it.
Okay.
And let me, my experience is a school business, obviously, from that tenure, and I would equate this, you know, from an analogy standpoint, to a fund balance. We got regular requests from school teachers to increase our salaries. You got a big old fund balance sitting over there. Well, that's a one-time expense that you can take out of it. And then next year, we're going to be right back. So this would be a very short-term gain on 1 year, and then we're going to be right back to the same operating budget that we have next year. So point taken, but it would be, in all honesty, it would be a 1-year adjustment.
Well, and I mean, if for instance, and I thought I saw somewhere along the line that maybe some of that money was spent for a software program, you know, like $400,000. That may not be correct, but I think that would be an appropriate use for a one-time expense for something that may come up. And, you know, if you have to buy a new software program, and we all do, we know that seems to come around pretty often. You know, that to me might be a good use of fund balance. You know, I wouldn't be appropriate to stick it into operations, yearly operations, because obviously it does come around every year. So I agree.
We are seeking your approval. If for some reason this resolution doesn't meet your approval, we have been working on this, and you know, we've been working on this 7 years probably, from before you traded for the BISD land. And we would like to, if we do end up with a third resolution, we would like to work with you closely and quickly, so that we can move forward.
I appreciate the job y'all do, John. You know, everybody on the board, Mark, Bill, Hogan, you know, don't get us wrong. We appreciate the job y'all do, what you try to do. We know it's something you've been working on for a long time, and we appreciate that. And in some form or fashion, we'd like to see, you know, y'all get what you'd like to have for the president in the long run.
But as I'll tell you, as I said in our meeting, based on the identified lot, I have to oppose the resolution as it stands. So I'm going to make a motion that we deny the resolution. There's a Motion made, seconded. Further discussion. Mr. Ball, you have any?
Do I get to speak?
Sure, come on up.
Thank you. I noticed the last time, I think in February, that I came up here to speak, you all paid very careful attention to what I had to say, and I really appreciate that. I have several things I could say. I'll just get to a few of them. The space is too small. We've heard that. But as I explained in February, I think it was, I can easily add space in whatever increment is needed. Beyond that, I can shrink the space. That's something it's hard to do when you have a fixed footprint of a building. But you don't know, what the future may bring, as Commissioner Catalina so aptly pointed out in February. I know that I make my living in real estate. I used to come to the appraisal district maybe 4 times a week. Now I only go maybe once in 3 months inside, because I get information I need off the internet, whereas I didn't have that opportunity before. And one thing we've never seen, we've seen information about the increase in the county population and increase in the parcel count, but we've never seen any information about an actual head count. And I do pass by the appraisal district probably 25 times a month, and I haven't seen in the 16 years that I've officed within walking distance of the BCAD, I haven't seen any increase in parking usage or anything like that would indicate that the amount of visitors is apace with the increase in parcel count or the population. I do not agree with the lease buy analysis. I think it had some things that are improper in it. That's the kind of work I used to do. When I was on somebody else's payroll, I was a capital budget analyst, and that's one of the things that I did. But I know that, for instance, Councilman James Benham of the City of College Station said that it is it's not a true apples to apples comparison, because it's not valid to say, well, here's the lease cost and here's the purchase, the cost with purchase, when the lease cost doesn't reflect the fact that funds could be applied to the lease and buy down the rent. We could buy down the rent with the funds that they have accumulated at the CAD. We could buy down the rent some $2,000 a month. That would retire a $500,000 bond. But also the issue of security, we can make that building just as secure as any new building. It's a modern steel frame, concrete tilt wall building where all the interior walls, none of them support any weight. They're all just there to demise space. So we can reconfigure with impunity to suit their needs. But I haven't been approached about expanding the space or the need for expanding the space or anything like that in some 3 years. I was 3 years ago, and we easily added 690 feet. 2 years before that, we easily added a whole suite adjacent of 1,011 square feet. How did we do it? We put a door in. Didn't have to do anything else. As far as keeping the visitors separate, 2 weeks ago I proposed that we use an existing fire corridor that is a 5-foot hallway that runs the full length front to back of the building to allow an extra escape point if the building caught fire. All they have to do to keep from bringing visitors back and forth through the working area and sometimes distracting employees is we can put a door into the fire corridor with a little signage. They go right down the corridor to where the pod of the collection of bathrooms is, and they can have a stop point there, signage, whatever, and all visitors who need to use the restroom can access it without disturbing anyone. And I only submitted that a couple of weeks ago, but I haven't had any response to that because it doesn't fit the agenda of getting a new building. Another problem I have with the lease buy analysis is that here's a list of things that I'm providing that I don't think got worked into the cost of owning a new building. I'm insuring the building. I'm paying for lawn and landscape. I'm paying for parking lot maintenance and replacement. I'm paying for outdoor lighting, bulb replacement, and I think it's about $800 a month in utilities for that. I'm responsible for the roof. When the roof needs to be replaced on the new building, that'll be paid for by the taxing entities. I'm paying for solid waste. I'm responsible for the structure and the foundation. I'm responsible for HVAC replacement. In 15 years, those air conditioners will start on the proposed new building, wherever it's situated, will need to start being replaced. I heard one or two people say that it's always better to lease than to own. Well, when I was a capital budget analyst, I worked for NL Industries. In 1978 and 9, they came up here and spent $69 million on the Atlas Bradford facility. It was later closed and bought by a couple of friends of mine for $2.2 million. That's a huge loss. They probably wish they had leased that property rather than own it. There are probably 10 million businesses and individuals who have borrowed money, as the BCAD proposes to do, and bought property and been foreclosed on. They probably wish they had leased rather than owned. There are other examples, such as the city of College Station buying 9 acres or so for the convention center, losing at least $4 million on it. And sometimes when you go out and commit funds and mortgage money and so forth, things turn out to be different than what you foresaw in the years prior to that. The current property they're on, I passed out the current tax bill, pays over $79,000 a year in taxes, and they've already told me they're going up next year. And we talk about, we don't want to take the 1.9 acres the Mars family owns off of the tax rolls, but that property only pays $9,000 a year. But we're proposing to take, in any scenario that I've seen here, a tenant that pays about 30% of the rent on a property that pays $79,000. So cumulatively, the property they're in now has paid $1,200,000 since I've owned it, 17 years. And the proposed property will pay exactly zero for the next 17 years. So that's part of what we call a differential analysis, or part of a properly done lease versus buy analysis. You can't just take the good part of owning and take the bad part of leasing and make a valid comparison. It really, I would propose that somebody, a third party, be contracted to do a proper comprehensive lease versus buy analysis, which we have not seen. I could, getting back to the number of visitors, we could possibly compare the state comptroller's experience. We don't have a comptroller's office in this county anymore. It's been removed to Waco. They found that it's expensive to have people interact with the public and they in face-to-face conversations, so they'd rather do it with electronically. So in 1992, they had 2,550 feet at the comptroller's office. In, I think, 2000, they shrunk that under John Sharp to 1,800 feet. I know because I was their landlord. In 2009, they shrunk it again to 1,340 feet. And then in a year ago or so, they completely eliminated that office and said everybody has to go to Waco. I've talked to a few disgruntled taxpayers who were looking for the comptroller's office, is how I know. So has the comptroller's office experienced a similar increase in population? I would say it's identical to what the appraisal district has experienced. Are they better off not having bought a building and taken out a mortgage? I would say so, because when the lease ends, they can just go. That's one of the advantages of a lease, is that when conditions change, you can just not renew your lease, and then the landlord has the problem and not you. As far as security, I think the building is secure. It's a modern fire sprinkler building. It's fire monitored. And as far as security of people's information, I've been to many protests, and I've protested a lot of times. I've been before the board. I couldn't give a hang about whether people see or hear. I wouldn't even care if my protests were broadcast. I really wouldn't. Because what are we dealing with? We're dealing with public information. You can look up where I live. You can see, and also now it's on. You can look it up at the BCAD. You can look it up on Zillow, the history of it, and so forth. It's all public information. The only thing that some people might be concerned about is their argument. But it's in no way comparable to, say, the formula for Coca-Cola, which is proprietary and would be damaging. I don't see any damage coming out of Walmart representatives coming to protest and somebody overhearing part of their usually pretty boring bunch of data they're spewing out. So I could go on, but in deference to your time and other people's time here, I'll save the rest for later. But thank you for hearing me.
Okay, thank you. I'll tell you, you make some good points. I never had thought about the amount of money that you pay in taxes, as a landlord. I mean, I think that does need to be in the equation.
I would pay less if they moved out. And I don't know how long it might take to replace them. When I lost Gaddytown due to their bankruptcy, it took me, I think it was 10 or 11 years to get a suitable replacement, which is Planet Fitness. I don't know if it would be that way in the future, because we just don't know the future. But I did forget to mention that the accumulated funds, the people at the BCAT are sharp, their board members are sharp, they've done a pretty good job, and they've accumulated these funds, but in a way, it's kind of like if you have an employee and you're providing that employee a place to work and so forth, and that providing that overhead, you're providing him phone, internet, paying various expenses, utilities, and so forth, and that employee is making money on it. Maybe he's got a side job, but he's using your facility to do it, what the entities are paying for. You probably want that money returned to you, or at least a good portion of it. And as a taxpayer, I kind of feel like we'd like to have that money back, or at least some of it. And if they want to buy down part of their lease, we can sure give them a good rate. We haven't increased the rent, as I pointed out in February. I showed you a 1099 from 2007. I was charging the same rent then as I'm charging in 2015, and in the intervening 8 years, we've had, the dollar has lost 21.2% of its purchasing power. Again, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
I just wish we could come up with something, because we need to get something done. I don't know how we need to do it.
Well, I think the information provided is good to, allow that the full consideration of the situation, at least a better picture.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to deny the resolution. I'm gonna ask for a hand raise. All in favor of the motion to deny, raise your right hand. Opposed? We've got unanimous vote. We can certainly sit down and talk, and maybe we need to talk with, even with Mr. Ball in the room from that perspective, but it may be that we need to get some representatives from maybe all the taxing entities to discuss how we might move forward and be successful on the next round.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate y'all being here this morning.
And
Thank you.
really, I do appreciate y'all's work on the board. It's thankless.
Yeah.
Like it is up here. I'm glad that, even though we may disagree with the result, it wasn't contentious this morning. But thank you.
Let's figure out a way for it to work for everybody. We'd be glad to try to do that.
I would just like for us to be able to do it quick, move on, sit down, have a gentleman's discussion, and come up with resolutions that are fitting for everybody involved, all of the entities. And I think it can be done. We
Thank
just
y'all.
need to approach it in a professional way, and I think we will. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to number 5, resolution 15-121, authorizing Brazos County to submit a grant application to and participate in the 2016 Indigent Defense Formula Grant Program.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Number 6, payment authorization to Mustang Rental Services in the amount of $1,800 for a water truck rental for Road and Bridge. The invoice was received after FY 2015 paid purchase order deadline.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Number 7, request by the Sheriff's Office to submit patrol vehicle number 194 in place of Unit 192, which was approved for the replacement of FY 16 budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Number 8 is agreement Brazos Valley Council of Governments for the funding of the Community Emergency Response Training. This request for partially fund a position with B.B. Cobb that provides local emergency response training.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Number 9 is funding agreement with Dispute Resolution Center, Central Brazos Valley, Inc. for FY 2016.
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Number 10 is award of bid contract 2016-132 seal coat.
I move for approval and,
With
And I-
Plow.
yeah, I'd like to make a comment too. On this particular bid, Plow or Poy, whichever way he pronounces his last name, has been doing this for years for the county and does very good work. His bid came in $566,000 less than the second lowest bidder above him, and that's great. And he said he didn't make a mistake on it, he does good work, so I'm happy to make a motion to approve this particular.
And I'm happy to second that motion, sir.
Motion made and seconded. Thank you, Commissioner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Number 11, budget amendments. Budget amendments FY 14/15, 59.1 through 59.2, and budget amendments FY 15/16, 9.1 through 9.8.
Move for approval. Second.
Second, discussion.
Judge, sorry.
There you go.
I wanted to point out on 9.8,
Okay.
I went to enter an agenda item, special agenda item today, and I accidentally chose consider and take action instead of regular items, so it didn't make the agenda. However, there's a budget amendment that effectively does the exact same thing. It's increasing the funding for the purchasing the new time clocks out of the capital fund by $3,500. That's how much they've gone up between the time we got the quote for budget and now. So, and it's a little bit of, there's about $250 in there in case we need a new cable, kind of thing. Okay, so I wanted to make sure y'all were aware that y'all were also approving that without a special item. Okay?
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 12 is personnel change of status.
Move approval.
Second.
Made second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 13. Payment of claims. Claims to be paid by Brazos County. Claim number 713-9048 through claim number 713-9244.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. Let's skip down to number 16 is an acknowledgement of submission of the FY 2015 Chapter 59 Asset Forfeiture Report to Constable Precinct 2. Number 17 is sheriff's report on inmate population. Sheriff.
All right, good afternoon.
Almost.
Judge, Commissioners, 569 peak in the last 24 hours, 46 are with ankle monitors and 17 are pending.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Number 18 is announcement of interest items and possible future agenda topics.
I had one thing, is that our health district had their audit, and they got flying colors on it, so, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, Ken always does. He's very conscientious.
Very. My job is
Yeah, okay. Call for citizens' input and our concerns. Hearing none, we will move back up to number 14 and convene an executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072 deliberate, business and financial issues related to contract being negotiated. Mr. Fowler.
Judge and Commissioners, this is a deliberation executive session based on Government Code 5510725, and as y'all are constantly reminded, this requires a vote by the Commissioners Court, and also a declaration by myself that this is in regards to an open session meeting involving these terms would be detrimental to the county's best interest. This is what you propose to deliberate in closed session is the negotiation of a contract with OPEB, and that's another post-employment benefits program that the county is considering to extend to its retired employees. And based on that, it's my conclusion that this is a deliberation open session will be detrimental to the county's best wishes. And I would ask you to vote and remind you that it must be a unanimous vote to return to executive session.
So we need a motion and a second, correct?
I move.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carries. And we will need, Charles, Terry, Bill, and Irene. Okay. And the time is 11:26.
Quite,
Good job.
uneventful compared to, but I do appreciate it very, very much.
Are they gonna have to do any kind of heart repair? You don't know yet?
They couldn't tell anything because the life support was, you know, blocking everything. Well, I think we have a little matter to take care of before we move anymore.
You ready, Ken?
This is a record, 12:05.
12:05.
Coming out of executive session, 12:05. I don't guess there's any action that needs to be taken. Just
Approve that pay raise for this.
For me?